Hello dear participants, I welcome you all in this certificate course on data interpretation using MS Excel and SPSS. Before starting this lecture, let me put forward few questions again. And they are as follows. What is variable and what is data? What comes first, data or variable? What are the different variables that we use in our research? What are the different types of the data? And finally, how data and variables are associated with each other. So this lecture will try to answer all these questions, and the title of this lecture 2 is Introduction to Variable and Data. So objective of this lecture is to make you familiar with the variable, the different types of the variable, data and the types of the data. So let me start with the meaning of variable. What is the meaning of variable? Variable represents the characteristics of an item or individual or an object. For example, suppose if I'm working on a particular research area and if I go into the field with my interview schedule or questionnaire, and if I'm collecting information on these characteristics, height, weight, eye color, marital status, income, place of residence, etc., so on and so forth, all those characteristics will represent the variable. So what is variable? Variable represents the characteristics of an item or individual or an object of my study. Now, if I go to the meaning of data, what is data? Data is the set of individual values associated with the variables. So coexistence of many variables lead to the data. That's the meaning of data. And finally, what is statistics? Statistics is the method that help transform data into useful information for decision making. So, transforming data into useful information, that is the function of statistics. If you all remember that in the previous lecture, I had used one terminology, that is sample statistic. Sample statistic is somewhat different than this statistics. Statistics is actually the method which help transform the data into useful information. Now statistics, suppose if I take one variable from this part, variable, fine. So if I take this height and I denote this with x, now I am having the height data. Then statistics comes into the picture. Using some method of the statistics, I compute, suppose, mean, and computing that thing, I'll get some result, and that result will lead to sample statistic. That result is known as a sample statistic. So that is the difference between statistics and sample statistic. Please don't get confused between these two terminologies. Now, who comes first? Definitely variable comes first. Once you collect the variable, once you collect the different variables, it leads to the data. And once you are having data with you, then you go for the statistics, for the use of the different techniques, for to use the different statistical methods to get some results out of that data. Fine. So variable comes first, then data, and then statistics. Now let me go back to the variable again. What is variable? Variable, it shows the characteristics of an object or an individual. Fine. In statistical methods, we show variables using different symbols. We denote variables using different symbols like capital X or Y or Z or any alphabet that you can use, no problem. There are different types of the variable. If you go to different books, you will find different types. We have tried to summarize all those types here, and here are the different types of the variable. If I draw a line here in between this list, then I'll say that this lower part, these different type of the variables are actually more specific. They are more specific, and these type of the variables that we use in the advanced statistics or in the regression analysis, which is one of the important part in the statistical analysis or in the probability. Fine. And the upper part, the types of variable mentioned here are more general in nature, and these types of the variable, those we use in the descriptive analysis or even in the hypothesis testing part. Right. What I mean to say, if you know the meaning of this variable, that thing is means that is enough for going into the descriptive analysis and the hypothesis testing part. But if you are going for the regression and the probability thing, then there is really need to understand the meaning of all these different types of the variables. Anyhow, we are going to see the meaning of each and every type of the variable enlisted here. One more thing is that in a different books there are different names been used to show the types of the variable. What I mean to say here, the categorical variable is same like a qualitative variable, is same like non-numeric variable and non-metric variable. So all these four are actually means, though the names are different, they are representing the same characteristic. They are showing the same thing. So we can use them interchangeably. On the opposite side, non-categorical variable, quantitative variable, numeric variable and metric variable, though the names are different, they all are same and they leads to the same thing. They represent the same characteristic of the variable. Fine. So this part will see in the upcoming slide. Once we understand the meaning, you will come to know that why I am saying like this. So we'll start with the first type of the variable, that is categorical, qualitative, non-metric variable. They all are same. What does that mean? They are the variables. They are representing labels, names or categories. If there is a variable under which we are getting the responses in different categories or in words or some kind of names, then those variables will be known as the categorical or qualitative or non-metric variable. And here are the examples. Suppose if I ask my respondent that what is your gender, then how I'm going to get the responses? Either I'll get the responses like male or female, or third is transgender. There is no fourth type. And here are the categories. This is categorized in the three different part. Fine. Here are the labels. Categories, when I'm asking the categories, general, SC, ST, OBC and so on and so forth. So when the variable representing the categorical things or the labels or the names, then it will comes under the categorical or it will be known as a categorical or qualitative or non-metric variable. Now on the opposite side, numeric, quantitative and metric variable. Here we collect the data or a variable which represents the quantities or the numbers, which is showing values. And here we have given the example. If I am asking height to my respondent, how I am going to get the responses? 160 centimeter or 170 centimeter or whatever it is. Weight, if I am asking, then it will be in the kg, 70 kg, 80 kg and so on and so forth. So I am getting the numbers, quantities. That is why this is called numerical or quantitative or a metric variable. Now, if I go further, the next type of the variable is discrete and continuous variable. This is also very interesting type of the variable. What is discrete variable? When the individual values fall on the scale only with distinct gap. And to understand this in a better way, let me take you to the example here. If we ask to our respondent that the number of children in the family, how will be the response? He will say either in my family there is only one kid, or there are two children, or there are three children, or there is no children, null. Fine. So, is there any respondent who will say no? In my family, means our family is having 2.5 children. No, this is not going to happen. In between these two numbers, there is nothing. There is a distinct gap. Either you are saying 1, or you are saying 2, or you are saying 3. The same story with the number of smartphones. How many smartphones you have? In the same pattern, we will get the responses. Number of cars sold, again the same pattern. So what are the properties of discrete variable? It is countable. We count. We are able to count the things, and nothing in between these two numbers. These are the properties of the discrete variable. Now, on the opposite side, there is a continuous variable. And what is continuous variable? Any numerical value within a specific range is called continuous variable. And to understand this in a better way, let me take you to the example. Suppose if I ask age of my respondent, then he will answer in such a way that suppose he says 30 years. Fine. Now, if I change my question and if I ask that please tell me your age, but it should be in the years and months, then I have added months here. So it will be now 30 years and say that 10 months. Again, if I add suppose days, then 30 years, 10 months, say 10 days. If I add hours, then again 10 years, 10 months, 10 days, and suppose 2 hours. Again, if I add seconds, multi-seconds, and there are many things. So why I have taken this example? Because I just wanted to highlight here is there are always many things between. There are always many things between. Continuous variable having two properties, it is measurable and always having many things between. Suppose I am measuring the length of my table, then as you all know that in everybody's home we are having the tape, kind of tape where there are the numbers 1, 2 and 3 and 4, and here is the 0. We start from 0. If I start measuring from this point to this point, I get the exact, what I can say, I can measure the thing. And in between these 2 centimeter and 3 centimeter, there are many small parts. Fine. So that is continuous variable. Anyhow, it is just try to understand these two things. Discrete variable, if we are getting the responses like with the distinct gap and only the whole numbers, then that will be the discrete variable. In a continuous variable, it is measurable and always many things in between. Fine. I'll go to the sport timing is also one of the interesting example of continuous variable. Fine. Now, the next type is dependent variable, independent variable, and as already I had mentioned that they dependent variable and independent variable, they are more actually are useful in the regression analysis of the statistical methods part. That particular part, regression analysis, is one of the statistical technique, advanced technique. There we these two terminologies will be used heavily. Dependent variable, if the value of one variable depends on another. For example, crop production. And on the other side, independent variable, if the value of one variable is not dependent and it stands alone, then that is independent variable. Here the example is rainfall. It means your dependent variable depends on independent variable. Your crop production depends on rainfall. There are different variables with us. It is really means if you wish to go for the regression analysis, it is required to identify that which one is the dependent and which one is the independent variable. There is no technique as of now that if I'm having 10 or 15 variables with me and some SPSS or MS Excel is telling me that okay fine, you choose this variable as a dependent and this variable is independent. No, this is not going to happen. Which one is dependent, which one is independent, or which one is categorical, which one is non-categorical, or all other these things that you will have to decide at your own. So far the dependent and independent variable is concerned, deciding dependent and independent variable is a big task and need better understanding of the research area, your own research area. It is more associated with your understanding and logic. Fine. Mainly used in the regression analysis and model construction that already we have seen. Now let me take you to the further slide. Now here are the other more specific variables enlisted. Constant variable. If the variable assumes or represents only one value, then it is called constant variable. In a regression analysis, if I am saying y is equal to a plus bx, this a is a constant variable. Fine. Extraneous variable, if a variable that is not considered in the study but may affect the dependent variable is called extraneous variable. If we have considered x but there is somewhat z which is affecting this y, then this z is known as a extraneous variable. Or most of these terminologies are actually associated with the regression analysis. This part is also associated with the regression analysis. What is regression? That we'll see in the respective lecture separately. Fine. In this lecture, just try to understand the meaning of these different terminologies which we are using for the types of the variable. Random variable, stochastic variable, it is variable whose value is subject to variation due to chance, and dummy variable, that is dichotomous variable used in regression to represent subgroups of the sample. They are represented like 0 and 1. They are also used in the dummy regression model. Fine. So here we have seen the meaning of the variable. Now one more important thing, that is we should usually know that what is variable, what is an attribute, and what is value. Actually these things comes in when there is a categorical data. When there is a categorical data, then these things comes in. So what is the meaning of attribute and what is the meaning of value and what is the meaning of variable? Suppose here is the gender, gender is the variable. Attributes means the classification. Male is there, female and transgender. Only 3 attributes are there. And what is the meaning of value? We allot some number. We allot some number. Those numbers are known as the value or the code. It is not like that here 3 is greater than 1 or 0. It is not like that. You can allot, you can give 3 number to male, 0 to female, or 1. You can allot any number to anybody. These are just simply the numbers because all your softwares and MS Excel only able to read which language? Numeric language. To make this language, word language, in a numeric way, we allot some values, we give some codes to the attributes. So attribute word, please just pay your attention to this word. This is again a very important word. Fine. So let me take you to the further slide. Now we'll come to the data. What is data? Data is collected information, and data is made of the different variables. What is raw data? That is unorganized information, and once we organize it in proper way, then it becomes the data on which we use some statistics, and using that statistics we get results, and if you are working on the sample, then it becomes sample statistic. This part already we have seen. Now what are the different types of the data? Now I'll ask you to just recall, just try to remember. You have somewhere heard the different types of the data, or you have read somewhere that these are the different types of the data. There are different types of the data mentioned in the different books. We tried here to enlist most of them. Fine. So what are the different types of the data? Primary and secondary data, qualitative, quantitative, categorical, non-categorical, metric, non-metric, discrete, continuous data, time series, cross-section and pool data. Now we are going to see the meaning of each of this enlisted type of the data. First is primary data. It is collected fresh and for first time. What is secondary data? It is collected by someone and access is available. Fine. Then categorical data. This is simple. Data containing categorical variables. We have seen that what is categorical variable? Like gender, category, right? If there are names, labels, there are different categories, then that will be known as the categorical variable. If the data containing categorical variable, it will reflect categorical data. Correct. Then non-categorical data. If the data contains non-categorical variable, it will be known as a non-categorical data. Then metric data. This is very important. If we are having the interval or ratio scale data within, then that will be known as a metric data. And non-metric data, if we are having nominal or ordinal scale within, then it will be known as a non-metric data. So this part, interval, ratio, nominal, ordinal, all these scales we are going to see in the measurement scale. Measurement scale, and the measurement scale is the next lecture actually. Once we'll understand the measurement scale, we'll understand what exactly do we mean by the metric data and non-metric data. Fine. Now, if I go further, what is discrete data? If the discrete variables are within, and discrete variable that we have already seen. Continuous data, if the continuous variables within, then it will be known as a continuous data. Time series data. What is time series data? It is actually this is, you will find this type of the data in any econometrics book. So time series data, it is a set of observation on the values that a variable takes at different times. Suppose here is the year, there are different years. Fine. And here is personal consumption expenditure. C for consumption, E for expenditure. And here is the data of one variable, and the variable is denoted by y. If the values are taken at different time, then that is known as a time series data. Time series data. Fine. Now, if I go forward, cross-section data. It is the data on one or more variable collected at the same point of time. Here, the most important thing is that at the same point in time. Suppose this is the data of 1990. This is the data of 19. All these numbers are associated with only one year, 1990. And these are the different states in United States. This table is been taken from the Gujarati book, Basic Econometrics book, a very popular book, and we have taken the table from that book. And these are the states, and here are the values for the egg production. This Y1 is the egg production. Fine. So for a single year, if you have collected the data for one variable from the different states, then it will be known as a cross-section data. Now, let me take you to the further slide. Pooled data. What is pooled data? Pooled data is nothing but the combination of these two. It will lead to the pooled data. Again, in this table, if you will see carefully, Y1 is a data for 1990. Y2 is the data for 1991. You can see here, it is given here. What is Y1, Y2, X1 and X2. Fine. Now, this is egg production. Egg production. And what is X1 and X2? Again, here is 1990 and 1991. And in 1990, it is the price. It is the price. So price is one variable, production is other variable. There are two different time set, 1990, 1991, and at the same time there are different states. So the combination of everything, time series and cross section, all together it leads to pool data. So I hope you understood this. Now, we have seen there are different types of the data. There are different types of the data, but all this data, it leads to what? What exactly we collect from all these different types of the data? And the answer is we collect the variables. We collect variables. And what is variable? Variable is actually it shows the properties of the study object. It shows the properties of the study object. And the next question is very important: how we measure the properties. Now again, see, we started with variable, a small part, then we went to data, a large part, then again we are coming back to the variable, right? And in the variable, what we measure? The property. But how we measure the property, right? How we measure the property of the study object? To measure this property, we need some scale to measure these properties. And in statistics or in research, there are four scales of measurement. They are nominal scale, ordinal scale, interval scale, and ratio scale. What are they? What is the meaning of all these scales? That we'll see in the next lecture. Now, so far this lecture is concerned, we'll go to the conclusion. In brief, we have seen that there are different types of the data. There are different types of the data, but considering all the types of the data, we have summarized it, and we have classified data into two parts only. All the types of the data will be covered here using this diagram or this chart. Fine. Data is mainly classified into two parts only: categorical, non-numeric, or non-metric. So if the data using labels, name, or attributes is there, then it will be known as a categorical data. So this is the one type of the data. The other type is numeric, metric, and non-categorical. Further, it is again classified into two parts: discrete data and continuous data. So this is the summarized chart of the classification of the data or the types of the data. So you will have to remember all these things. Means the categorical data you should know, numerical data, discrete and continuous data, because when we are going to the further lectures, we will be only talking in these terms: categorical, numerical, discrete data, and continuous data. If you are comfortable with the meaning of these types of the data, then that is the required thing, that is the enough part using which we can understand the descriptive statistics and hypothesis kind of part. Fine. So I'll go to the last slide. So here are the questions again which I had asked you at the beginning of this lecture, and I hope that we have answered all the questions in this lecture. The questions I'll read again. What is variable and data? That we have seen. What comes first, data or variable? That also we have addressed. What are the different variables that we use in research? That also we have addressed. What are the different types of the data? That also we have seen. And how the data and variables are associated with each other, that also part we have addressed well. And I hope you all have understood this and you enjoyed this lecture also. See you soon in the next lecture entitled Measurement of the Scale. So far this lecture was concerned. Here we'll stop, and thank you for your kind listening. Thank you.